Tranquility Healing. So today I'm going to be introducing Jaleen, and we're going to be talking about her near-death experience. I'm super excited. This is my first official podcast for anybody who's following me. I was feeling really called to do near-death experiences. I love listening to them. I think they're so inspirational, and so I'm really excited to connect with her today because this is me actually getting to talk to somebody who's actually been in the experience. So I'm really super excited. So, so thank you for coming on. I really appreciate that. I'm really excited to talk to you. So the one thing that I'd like to ask you first is what was your life like before you had your near-death experience?
Yeah, great question. And I'm excited to be here too. I think before my near death experience, I was kind of just going by day. Like I was already in my spiritual practice. So that was already like, I was doing energy work and things like that. But I
Mm.
think I felt like I was almost hitting an edge that I wasn't shifting through. And then it was also in the middle of like becoming a new mom and then like, almost having my second child. So I felt like I was in a place where I didn't really have my own identity while I was
Mm.
simultaneously like working on myself. So I was really calling in like, who am I? Like, what do I want out of life? How do I want to serve people? So there was like stagnancy happening, but also like I was calling in
Mhm.
higher energy. And I really like, in my experience, I think that is like a catalyst to my near death experience because I was really in a place where like I wanted my life to change. And my near death experience definitely did that.
Oh gosh, I can't even imagine. That's kind of crazy that you were already um, in your spirituality though. I only say that because I listen to a lot of near-death experiences. I've been listening to them for years. They're like one of my favorite things to listen to. Um, and I don't find in listening to those that a lot of people talk about that they were already in a spiritual sense. A lot of the times I find they are talking about like their lives, how they were just kind of like, they were going with the flow, but everything wasn't working out. And then they have it because I feel like just from being a spiritual person, I always feel like a spiritual, um, like a near-death experiences is almost like the universe saying, "Hey, wake up." That's just my take on it because, yeah, a lot of the times I find they're not where they're supposed to be. Do you know what I mean? Does that make
Absolutely.
sense to
And
you?
yeah, for sure. And I think like near death experiences, they definitely shake you awake. And I think that's why a lot of people have them at pivotal times in their lives where like things
Mhm.
really need to change. I think that's like the common denominator is like something really needs to change. And I think like a lot of people, they are somewhere where they feel like they're in the dark. And even though
Mhm.
my spiritual journey had started, I very much felt like I was in the dark.
Mhm.
And I think also like being spiritually awakened is also what made the experience so intense for me because I was already like, doing like shadow work and things like that. And then so when the near death experience happened, it really brought me into like a deep state of darkness that I'm like, how do I get out of here? So it really
Um,
called me inwards to like go within and work through my own traumas, experiences. And I think that,
mhm.
everybody experiences near death experiences differently. And I think it just depends on really circumstances of your life and what the purpose of the near death
Mhm.
experience is and what needs to be awakened to and how gracefully we can navigate that. um,
Mhm.
I do think that near death experiences also make us face things in a different light,
Mhm.
and we really need to work through and integrate that. And then depending on where we are also, like, for those of us who have them and we're already, awakened, it can really take you really deep. deeper than the
Mhm.
average person. And then so that's where, like, for my experience, it took me so deep that I really needed to like take a step back and just literally work on myself. And I think,
Mhm.
in that regard, I'm so grateful for it at this point.
Mhm.
But I think it has the power to really shake people up, and then they don't know where to go. So I think there's two sides
Oh,
of the
yeah.
experience.
I
Yeah.
I 100% agree with you with that. Only just because I said I've listened to so many like near death experience podcast and yeah, just how it affects people. Like a lot of people, you see a lot of people go into the dark afterwards because they're like they don't know what to do, and then they feel like they have nobody to talk to, and then it really just depends. I find eventually they come out of it and they're like, oh, okay, I can share this. But in the beginning, people might not want to listen to them. They feel like they can't talk to anybody. They feel, I don't want to say alienated, but they're going through something where everything's been shaken up and they're like, I don't even know how to think about life anymore because really, it's just so crazy. So, before we get into your story, because I obviously want to hear your story and then we'll go into some questions, but I wanted to ask you, were you like, because I know a lot of the times when you have a near death experience, it really will open you up, right? Very spiritual. A lot of people will then start, seeing spirit, hearing, and having all these spiritual experiences. But I wanted to ask you, when you were a kid or when you were younger, did you have any spiritual experiences?
Oh yeah. When I was growing up, I didn't necessarily have anyone to support me simply because, I was the only awakened kid around, and my parents, I love them, but they didn't have any experiences with that, and they didn't know how to support me, and like that's all good, right? Like you
Hmm.
don't know what you don't know. But very much, I was disturbed almost every night. I had spirits on my bed. I had my hair pulled, like the whole thing. So that is really
Wow.
what started my journey into spirituality, because it came to a point in my life where I knew I was going to settle down and have kids, and I needed to turn my gifts into gifts and not curses that I pass on to my kids. So I had all of those experiences, many very scary, that I wouldn't wish upon anyone. And so my kids are really my inspiration of why I dove deep into this practice, to
Hmm.
master the skills that I had as a kid that I didn't know what to do with, I had no control over, and I was just kind of wide open for things to happen to.
Yeah. No, that's good. You know what? Now that I think about it, I remember you did mention something along those lines when we were talking last, that you wanted to bring those gifts into actual gifts so that they weren't feeling like they were curses that you were passing on to your kids. So, honestly, I think that's really great that that's what you chose to do, because some people might shy away from it or be like, oh, well, no, I'll just push it to the back. But really, they are gifts and they can help you navigate through life. It just depends on how you choose to look at them and how you choose to work with them. Um, so, okay, I want to hear about your experience, and then, yeah, we'll just talk about it afterwards and whatever questions and go from there. I'm so
Absolutely.
excited.
Yeah, yeah. So my experience actually happened during the childbirth of my second child.
Mhm.
So we both almost passed. Basically, it just didn't go as planned. It was an emergency. I started bleeding out, and so we both had to get rushed into emergency C-section. Um, and I just remember like getting in there, and like this baby had to come out now. Um, and then so that was pretty much it. I was out after that. I went into complete darkness. Like there was nothing. A lot of people talk about transcendental experiences. I went just completely dark, as if life didn't exist anymore. And then the next thing I remember is they were calling my name, and it was like I remember hearing my name, and it was like, oh yeah, I have a life. oh, I should probably go back. And then so as I had that awareness, it was like kind of like an experience of being reborn. Like I forgot that I had a life. I forgot that I was alive, and I kind of had to just like wake myself up again, if that makes sense. And
Mhm.
then so there was kind of like lights coming back, and then all of a sudden I was back and I was like, "Oh, oh yeah," like just kind of like remembering life again. And it was like really crazy because I couldn't hear at first because of all the medications they put me under. So it was like I was very much out of it, but conscious. And it was like I had no idea what was going on. And then I remembered my baby. And then, I got all the answers. She was fine. We were both
Mhm.
going to get completely normal. But it was just like I had to like relearn how to hear and use my body. And then I had an experience of like, it was like a new part of me came into my body. Like the version of me that was in my body before the
Mhm.
experience wasn't the same me. I had an experience where I just seen my husband and I just started like dramatically crying because
Mhm.
something in me was like, oh my God, I haven't seen you for thousands of years. And then I realized I'm like, this is a part of me that's coming in. Like, if you want to call it a walk in experience, it was kind of very
Mhm.
similar to like a walk in experience of like, but it was still me. So I had a walk in of a higher version of myself.
Oh,
And
wow.
then yeah, it was so much at once. It was like very hard to process. And then so that was all kind of happening in the evening, and then obviously my body was like very tired. So I had gone to sleep. And then I remember it was probably like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I thought it
Mhm.
was a nurse. Someone woke me up and they were telling me to have a drink of water. And then so I was like drinking my water, and then I seen like a hospital gown, like the person who was waking me up was in a hospital gown. And when I
Mhm.
looked at her, she was in a hospital gown but completely drenched in blood
Oh my
and
gosh.
disheveled. And then so I realized I'm like, this is a spirit right now, but she's trying to help me. And then that realization jolted me awake. What was happening was I was asleep, but in a lucid state where I was kind of like astral
Mhm.
traveling, and I was seeing this spirit here. And then, so as soon as I woke up, I had this awareness of like, I still felt this spirit beside me, but I knew it was okay because she was helping me. She was waking me up, drink this water, you'll be okay. She was very comforting. That experience kind of was like, whew, like there's spirits coming in, but I'm like, I have too much to process right now. And it was also a very impactful part of the experience because I felt like I couldn't tell anybody that at first. I was like, I told my husband because he was already like very much aware of my gifts and stuff, and I could trust him. But I'm
Mhm.
like, I needed to talk through the experience with someone who is
Mhm.
like, who could deeply understand the spiritual side of it or even the psychological side because it was just so much to process. And I really felt like I couldn't talk to anyone because I was so afraid somebody would think like this chick's crazy. She just had this near death experience and now she's seeing things like, and in our society sometimes how people just don't understand, and that's okay. But so there is so many layers to that. And
Oh, wow.
really through the whole thing, and it didn't happen until like a few days later, but it really opened up like a floodgates for all of the emotions that I repressed my entire life to
Mhm.
just come rushing through. And so it came with an intensity. It threw me into PTSD from the whole experience. For
Oh, wow.
a whole year I was really processing that because it was just so much. It opened the floodgates. And so that's why, like, in my experience, I always say, like, near death experiences have the ability to open a floodgate that, like, you can't close. And
Mhm.
it's not that you want to close it, but it's an intensity. And so you really have to also process the things that come up. And, I kind of got caught in a healer's trap where I was trying to go into the past and, fix the trauma that I had, fix the negative emotions that I had. And really what got me through it was just like, I had to actually just allow myself to feel those feelings. I had to
Mhm.
sit with it, allow it to flow through my body, even though it was intense and uncomfortable. And so when I started doing that, then everything kind of just started settling.
Yeah. Okay. Do you find that since because like I said, just from listening to podcasts before about near-death experiences, some people come back and it's almost like they're completely healed. Like they have a near-death experience, they come back and it was like everything was wiped clean, the slate was wiped clean and they're completely healed. But you're saying that you came back and then you had all these emotions. So do you feel, and you were saying like you had the PTSD and stuff like that from it. Do you find that was it hard to work through all of those emotions?
I would say at first very much so because I was also like I had a newborn. I had two
Hmm.
really young kids, and I had already felt like I lost my identity. And then all of these things that came up, I think it was just like everything combusting into this really chaotic experience is what kind of threw me into the depths of it. But it was really
Hmm.
hard to process at first. Like, I feel like for the first few months after that, like, I was just really numb to the whole thing. Like I had felt so much that I was just in a state of numbness. So I had to get out of that state of numbness first to be able to even feel. And then
Yeah.
once I started feeling, it was like I would allow it in layers, which I could
Okay.
handle because I didn't want it to be that intensity again. So there was that level of fear that came with it also of like, this is really intense. I don't know if I can handle this. So it really like it challenged me mentally and emotionally on so many levels. And I think, like near death experiences can be like so different from person to person. I absolutely know there's like really transcendental ones, but that just wasn't my experience, and that's okay. But
Hmm.
I think, like, regardless of your direct experience, there's going to be things that come up. And I think that if we just allow ourselves the space and grace to process some of
Hmm.
the difficult things that come with near death experiences, instead of like
Hmm.
fighting it, I think feeling it is like truly the answer, at least in my experience. Then I think, the whole experience can be experienced with more grace and more love and compassion and actually finding the purpose in it.
Hmm. And I mean, everybody really truly does have a different experience. I've heard of people who have been in that, like that, I guess you want to call it a void, where you were like, you were there and it was like nothing. It was like nothing existed. And I've heard of that too. You know, from listening to them, from being spiritual, because I am a medium, a psychic. I've been doing this for like 20 years. Um, everybody's experiences could be so different. And, I think that the way you approached it, it sounds like you did it in a way that was helpful for you. So I mean, I'm glad that you were able to work through it. Um, and when you were talking about feeling numb, um, do you feel that, I mean, it must have been really hard, obviously, because like you said, you had a newborn, you had another small child. When you felt numb, like, did you feel numb to like everything? Like you're talking about feeling numb to emotions, but did you feel numb, like almost like you were like almost like walking through life, but you weren't really like there kind of idea? Was it like that kind of idea?
100%. Yeah. I think that numbness came for like a lot of reasons. Obviously, it was like a coping mechanism due to like the intensity of all the
Hmm.
emotions. But I also felt like there was that piece that walked in and that aspect of me that came to life that
Mhm.
had to integrate as well. And then so that was a big piece of it as well for me, is like I already felt like I didn't know myself, and now I really didn't know myself.
Mhm.
So I kind of felt like I was walking through something that was my life, but didn't feel like my life. And so there was just like a
Yeah.
lot of confusing emotions around all of it. And obviously, like I could intellectualize it all because, you know,
Mhm.
I was already on my spiritual path. I was very well aware of what was happening, but it's very different being aware of it and actually being able to, you know, do the things that you know you need to do because you're still human, right?
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
like I had to receive my own medicine.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm sure, like, how, if you don't mind me asking, how was your husband through this whole process? Because obviously you opened up to him and you told him about it, and obviously he must have noticed that you were feeling, kind of numb to everything. Did you find that he was like a big support for you in that?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know how I would have gotten through it like without
Oh.
him. He just gave me as much space and grace as I needed to just like sleep or process things, or like he was always there to take care of the kids when I just needed to
Mhm.
take care of myself.
Yeah, and I mean, even as we're talking about this, like how you're talking about you felt like you were like reborn kind of idea. That makes sense. And it's funny because I know that when we come into this world as a baby, we are pure love and light. But, I almost wonder, is that how we feel when we first come in as a baby? Do we feel that way? I mean, I know when we come in, we're pure love, we're pure joy, we're pure peace, we're connected to the divine, but, I wonder if that's how we feel. It's not something I would know because you don't remember when you're a newborn, but it's kind of crazy because you were basically kind of like rebirthed, right? So
Hmm.
that's kind of crazy. Like, think about it. And I know um the energy up there is so much lighter than the energy down here. The energy down here is more dense. It's more, you know, um a little bit harder to process, right? So obviously you had a lot on your plate. You were going through a lot, and plus you had a baby. And um, so I wanted to ask you, when you felt like you started to, after like the numbness and stuff, when did you feel like you started to feel, um, I don't know if I want to say better, or maybe like where you kind of felt like, okay, I can navigate through this now. Oh, I can get through this. Oh, this is what I need to do.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It really came in like steps. And I think like the awareness of everything was the first step. And then I had to like catch myself when I was going to like cycle out into like numbness or like emotions, basically. So I had to like become aware of the cycle as it was happening and like, okay, I'm noticing, this pattern, or I'm feeling a certain way. Let's notice when it's going to start spiraling out into like, that numbness feeling, that protective mechanisms, right? So when
Hmm.
I had that deeper awareness, then I began to like, I like to call it windows now when I'm like working with clients. I always talk about there's a window of opportunity right between the awareness and the reaction. So I
Oh.
trained myself to like sit in that window, like breathe consciously, and then that would help me extend that window so that it wouldn't be like boom, trigger pattern emotion. So I worked with myself to slow that down a little bit. And then so once I got that window of opportunity a little bit wider by
Hmm.
doing intentional things like regulating my own nervous system, because really I was in a state of like survival, fight and flight, right? So
Hmm. I
using that
believe that.
window, I was able to then, get myself breathe through it a little bit, and then there would be like another choice. I'd be like, okay, hyper aware of the situation. Now I see the window of opportunity where I have the choice to do something differently. I'm not denying the intensity of the emotion that I feel,
Mm-hmm.
but I still have a choice. And then so it's right in there. That's where I trained myself and where it became easier and easier. It wasn't perfect, but it was
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think was like the one thing that made you feel good though? Like when you started to notice that you felt better?
feel better. Okay. So,
You're all good. Yes. What made you feel good? What was the one thing that made you feel good?
so what made me feel good through like the whole process was really just rediscovering myself. Um,
Okay.
when I was kind of going through everything, just having those little breaks, those moments for myself, that's
Mm-hmm.
what really, I think, just allowed me some peace. Like that
Okay.
pause, that sacred pause. That's really
Yeah.
what I think got me through the whole thing was just those moments of mindfulness.
Okay. And so since all of that happened, obviously you were spiritual and you were having spiritual experiences. What are the things that have changed? Obviously, we know we've heard you talk about seeing that spirit, but what has opened up for you and changed a lot in your spiritual experiences?
I think one thing that's really changed for me is just even the way that I process emotions and the way that I help guide others process their emotions. I think that um, for me, some of the traditional things like talk therapy wasn't getting to really the root of my experience. So I think that what changed for me is even the way that I approach some of these deep felt emotions, like repressed emotions, because I work with that a lot with people. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think what changed for me is just being able to hold space for those expressions and then even like working with them differently, like, you know, in meditation, for example, or in metaphor, um, visualizing the release of these emotions instead of having to talk through it. Because for me, talking about it was like creating the cycle over and over again. But if I sat with these emotions and I just allowed myself to feel them and I just allowed, myself to visualize my way through it, I found I was approaching the situation in a way that not only felt good, but it was like getting somewhere. So I think what really changed for me is my approach and even handling some of these deeper pressed emotions really shifted.
Oh wow, that actually sounds really amazing to be honest. That sounds like a wonderful gift to get after something like that. You know, some people talk about how after having a near-death experiences that they see spirits or, obviously they open up to, you know, hearing spirit, seeing spirit, knowing things, all that kind of stuff. But I like how you're talking about being able to um, figure out your emotions because honestly, I think that's one of the hardest things to navigate through in this lifetime, right? We always have so much on our plate. So do you feel like that because of that? Do you feel like, how can I explain this? Do you feel like you can heal from things more easily? Like, if just wondering, do you feel that because you've had this experience and you can navigate through your emotions a little bit better? Do you feel that you have the power to heal more quickly? Because to me, like physical ailments are always connected to emotional stuff. So, because you are able to navigate through your emotions a little bit easier, do you think that you heal more easily, I guess?
Oh, 100%. I think the emotions really were at the core of everything for me. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the emotions too is like what opened up, the energy deeper for me as well. Because my primary practice is like with energy and energy medicine. And so when I was actually able to feel and like receive my own energy medicine, that's what also like was a catalyst for my practice as well and like how I serve others. So like I'm a firm believer that the things that we go through ourselves, the
Mm-hmm.
medicine that we can give for other people. So like when I worked through my emotions, that allowed me to, I guess, be more of a clear channel as well for the
Mm-hmm.
energy that I was connected with. And then also, like, for my own system and my own awareness and my own inner knowing as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
definitely the emotional piece is what opened it up for me, because for me it was like the emotions were the weight, were the block.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I'm such a big believer that you know, what in my spiritual practice, what I've encountered is that, all of our physical ailments become like physical because of our emotions. So when we can get to the root of the emotion or the root of the trauma, or, you know, then we can heal. So yeah, I'm just a big believer in that. But for anybody who's spiritual, I'm sure that they believe in the same kind of thing. Um, so if you don't mind me asking, so what is the spiritual work that you do? Because obviously I would love to share it on my podcast for anybody who wants to connect with you as well.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So, I'm an energy shaman. I work primarily with Anto High Alchemy, and I'm an Anto High Quantum Reiki instructor as well. So, I really kind of work with the building block energies that like create this matrix or reality. And by tapping into this energy, it basically helps you like build a new reality. So, quantum Reiki is very like in tune with life and the physical body. So with this modality, it really can help you transform your life, like in any aspects. So there's like different components that you tap into with the energy, and you basically channel into the energy and create the building blocks of what make the matrix that you're trying to bring into life, if that makes sense. So that's like the primary energy that I work with. I'm also a meditation teacher. So that's why like I love the meditational approach as well. And then I also do
Mhm.
spiritual coaching. So I help coach people, through their experiences and training new students as well. That's my primary practice is training others who are attuned to this energy to help get them deeper with it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah. So I wonder how your Reiki difference di is different from the Reiki I do. I do Yusu. I think that's how you say it. Yusui?
Usui. Yeah, usui.
Yusui. I was like, wait a second, did I say that wrong?
Mhm. Yeah, so usui, it differs from usui in a couple of ways. So I also practiced usui before I learned this modality. So with usui, you know how you like channel it into your body, and then you basically the energy comes through your hands. And then with usui, I find it's like there's an emotional, spiritual key, or there's a physical
Mhm.
key. Whereas with quantum reiki, it's more like there's this aspect of energy that can um, help you with your breath or help you with your physical wellness. um, and then so the channel that you tune into is a little bit different. Instead of channeling it into your body and then out to your client, you just connect them directly with the channel itself. So there's a little bit difference in the fundamental principles of like how you connect with the energy as well. And then it also
Okay.
brings into like quantum reality. So it works on a 12 chakra system. So each chakra has its own energetic symbol, um, energetic frequency, channel, if you will, that when you tap into this energy can create different potentials. So that's why it's quantum as well, is it works on the 12 chakra scale.
Oh wow, that's really cool. Honestly, I've done my Reiki level 1 and 2 twice and then my Reiki master. I just kind of go where spirit tells me. I'm so in tune with spirit. Spirit just tells me what to do and I just listen. I don't even have a what do you call it, a set scale of what I do. I just go in and spirit just tells me what to do, and that's just I love it. It's always so fun. I find every Reiki experience is a different one, and I love it. It's awesome. But so I wanted to ask you too, since we were talking about this and your baby as well. Um, you know, I just wanted to confirm that she obviously is okay and that you wouldn't know if she had that same experience as you. Um, maybe she did, maybe she didn't. It's not really, I guess you can't really say, but I just wanted to confirm and make sure that we asked about the baby because obviously she's an important part of this story.
Yeah,
She's
no,
all good.
she completely recovered. You wouldn't even know it. Yeah, you wouldn't even know it. Her dad was like so amazing for her. I was obviously like as present as I could be and like meeting basic needs. He was really there for her emotionally and like she's
Oh,
daddy's little girl.
oh, that's sweet. Yeah, it obviously gave them some time to connect. So, I also wanted to mention, so, um, what do you think is the reason that you chose to have this experience? Because before we come down here, we choose every experience that we have. Obviously, you made some sort of contract or some sort of, hey, this is going to happen in this lifetime. Do you have any thoughts about that? Like why you think you might have chosen to have that experience?
Yeah, I think that I was even thinking about like where I was before leading up to that. As I mentioned,
Hmm.
I was like manifesting a lot of things. I wanted like exponential growth in my own energy work practice. And I was just moving at such a fast pace that
Hmm.
really it kind of caused a near death experience because I was asking for that big of a change in my life and with that intensity of energy that I was calling in, it combusted into a near death experience that changed everything. So I I would do the near death experience again in all honesty because on the other side of it, having the first experience, it's a catalyst. It's something that we
Hmm.
can use and work through. So I 100% used it to catalyze, my own energy and my own healing and, overcoming, all of the tensions and the emotions that I was holding and storing in my body that was preventing
Hmm.
me from embodying my energy medicine. So I 100% consciously and spiritually with my higher contracts use this as a catalyst for my own growth, so that would
Hmm.
100% be why. And I kind of laugh at myself after the fact because I'm like, yeah, we needed to like give ourselves some space to grow. We didn't have to go at this high accelerated rate of evolution
Hmm.
because I think when you're spiritually awakened, when you're working with high frequency energy and you're just like more, let's go, let's work, let's shift through this, you can call in those type of catalyst experiences. So I think we need to use
Hmm.
that with mindfulness as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's funny. And I mean, I think it's great and I love that you have such an understanding of why it happened. But isn't it funny though, like j just totally somewhat on topic, but somewhat not, to imagine that there are so many people walking around not really realizing that we are these spiritual beings inside of a physical body. Like it's just crazy. I will say I do think that the world is opening up quite a bit. Everybody is having more spiritual experiences. Everybody is more awakened to it, but there are the handful out there that are not awakened to it, and it's just crazy when you think that people don't realize that. It's crazy. So.
Hmm.
But yeah, I totally appreciate you sharing your story with me. I think it's wonderful and obviously sharing your work with me. Um, and yeah, we will. I'll get your information so I can share like, your website or whatever on there as well. And yeah, I really appreciate it. Is there anything else that you want to share with me before we take off?
Yeah, no, I appreciate this space and this conversation, and I think the main thing is for, anyone who's listening is to just, if you're experiencing a near death experience, or, you come to a point where you ever do, I think just remember that, it holds a purpose. And if you're ever feeling
Hmm.
like an intensity with it, it's normal. We're allowed to be human. And we shouldn't have to feel like we have to deny our emotions, or emotions are too scary to experience because they're intense. So
Hmm.
I think everyone just, needs to know that we've been there. There's a shadow side of life that we don't always talk about. And I think in my work, that's really what I hone in on, is like the shadow aspects that, maybe we don't talk about. And I think maybe that's why I had an experience, that many people don't always experience with near death experiences. But when we
Hmm.
look at life and can acknowledge the shadow aspects of it, I think life actually becomes easier because we're not fighting with it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes total sense to me. I think that's a wonderful message. The funny thing is when I decided to reach out to people, I thought, you know what? I'm going to reach out locally. I really was not expecting the response that I got when I did. I just had this inkling, I had this knowing. I was like, no, you need to reach out to people locally. And it's amazing how many people have actually had a near-death experience, more people than you would think. And I'm like, wow, like it actually blew my mind. I was totally, totally floored. It's crazy. So, um, so I'm gonna just stop recording here, and then if you want to chat for a minute, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on.